There is something the elders in Abney village always say: betrayal never comes from strangers. It comes from the one who knows your secrets, the one who eats from your plate, the one you call brother. This is the story of a man who trusted completely and lost everything. And by the time he realized the truth, it was already too late. In the heart of Abney, life moved slowly, like the gentle wind that passed through the palm trees each morning. The village was not rich in gold or grand buildings, but it was rich in something people valued even more: community. Everyone knew everyone. Doors were rarely locked. Meals were often shared. And trust was something people gave freely. Children grew up playing together in the open fields, chasing each other under the sun until their laughter filled the air. Women gathered by the river to wash and talk. Men sat under the great baobab tree, discussing life, work, and the future. It was a place where people believed in each other. And in that village, two boys grew up side by side. Their names were Collins and Peter. From the moment they could walk, they walked together. If Collins had food, Peter ate. If Peter found trouble, Collins stood beside him. If one dreamed, the other believed in it too. They were more than friends. They were like two shadows that never separated. The villagers noticed. They are not just friends, an old woman once said. They are one heart living in two bodies. Collins was quiet, patient, and kind. Even as a boy, he worked hard without being told. He listened carefully when elders spoke and helped wherever he could. Peter was different. He was lively, quick to laugh, and full of charm. He knew how to speak in a way that made people like him instantly. He could turn a simple moment into something joyful. Together, they balanced each other. One steady like the earth, the other bright like fire. And under the wide branches of the baobab tree, they made promises that felt unbreakable. No matter what happens, Collins said one day, looking serious, we will always stand together. Peter smiled without hesitation and placed his hand over Collins's. Always, he said. And in that moment, they both believed it. But life has a way of testing words. Because promises are easy to make when hearts are pure and much harder to keep when desire begins to grow. And in a quiet corner of that peaceful village, something unseen had already begun to change. At first, nothing seemed wrong. If you looked at Collins and Peter from the outside, you would see two young men growing into their lives, side by side, just as they always had. But sometimes change does not announce itself. It begins quietly, like a small crack in a wall no one notices until one day, the whole structure begins to weaken. As the years passed, the boys became men, and life slowly began to separate their paths. Collins chose the path of patience. Every morning, before the sun fully rose, he was already in his field. The earth was cool beneath his feet, and the air still carried the softness of dawn. He worked without complaint. He planted carefully, he watered consistently, he removed weeds one by one. Even when the work was slow, even when the results did not come quickly, he stayed committed. People began to notice. That one, an elder said one day, pointing toward Collins in the distance, he understands that good things take time. And time began to reward him. Season after season, his harvest improved. His yams grew bigger, his maize stood taller, his storage slowly filled. Not all at once, but steadily. Peter walked a different path. He did not like waiting. He did not like slow progress. He preferred movement, quick opportunities, easy wins. One day he would help a trader, another day he would guide travelers. Sometimes he would do small jobs around the village. He always had something, but never for long. And while Collins was building something strong, Peter was only passing through moments. At first, it did not matter, because Collins always shared. If Collins cooked, Peter ate. If Collins earned money, Peter borrowed. If Peter needed help, Collins never asked questions. Why should I struggle? Peter would laugh. When my brother is already succeeding. And Collins would smile, because to him it was not a burden, it was love. But deep inside Peter, something began to shift. At first it was small, so small it almost felt harmless. A thought, a quiet question. Why is his life growing and mine is not? He pushed it away, but the thought returned, stronger. more persistent. Each time Collins's success became more visible, that question grew louder, until it was no longer just a question. It became a feeling, a heavy one, something close to envy, but not yet fully formed. One afternoon, Peter stood at the edge of Collins's farm. He watched him work. Sweat covered Collins's face, but there was peace in his movement, purpose, direction. Peter folded his arms. "This is too much work," he muttered. But even as he said it, he could not ignore what he was seeing. All of this came from effort, from discipline, from consistency. Things Peter had never truly committed to. And instead of pushing him to change, it did something else. It made him uncomfortable, because it showed him a truth he did not want to accept. That the difference between them was not luck. It was choice. That evening, they sat together outside Collins's house. The sky was painted with the colors of sunset.
Warm.
Peaceful.
Calm.
"You should rest more," Peter said casually. "You work too much." Collins smiled. "The land gives back what you give it." Peter looked at him carefully. "And if you stopped working?" he asked. Collins shook his head. "Then it would stop giving." There was something in that answer. Something simple but powerful. Peter nodded slowly, but inside, his thoughts were not at peace. Because now, the difference between them was clear. And once a man begins to compare, he begins to measure. And once he begins to measure, he may begin to desire what is not his. That night, as Peter lay on his mat, staring into the darkness, the thought returned again. This time, louder than before. Why him and not me? He turned to one side, closed his eyes, tried to sleep, but the question stayed. And with it, something else. Something dangerous. Because in that moment, envy was no longer just a thought. It had begun to grow roots. Envy does not shout. It whispers. It hides behind smiles. It speaks in quiet thoughts. And it grows when no one is watching. The night of the celebration was supposed to be a happy one. The entire village gathered under the open sky. Drums echoed through the air, deep and steady. Women danced with joy. Children ran in circles, laughing without care. It was a night of unity, a night of pride, because Collins had just completed his best harvest yet. His hard work had paid off. People surrounded him. "Collins, you have done well. Your farm is the best this season. You are an example to the young men." Voices rose around him, like music. Collins stood humbly, bowing his head slightly each time someone praised him. "Thank you," he said softly. "It is the grace of God and the kindness of this land." He did not boast. He did not act proud. And somehow that made the praise even louder. Not far from him stood Peter, watching. At first he smiled. He clapped. He nodded like everyone else.
But slowly something changed.
Each word of praise began to feel heavier. Each compliment sharper. It was no longer just sound. It became comparison.
"He deserves it," someone said.
"Yes," another replied. "He has worked harder than anyone." Peter's smile stiffened. "Worked harder." The words echoed. He looked around. No one was calling his name. No one was praising him.
No one was celebrating him.
For the first time in a place where he had always felt equal, he felt smaller. He stepped back from the crowd.
Quietly.
No one noticed. The drums continued. The laughter continued. The celebration continued. But for Peter, something had already broken. Later that night, the village began to calm. The music faded. The crowd thinned. And the moon rose quietly into the sky. Peter sat alone under the great baobab tree. The same tree where he and Collins had made promises as boys. The same place where they once laughed without worry. But tonight, there was no laughter. Only silence.
Footsteps approached.
It was Collins. "Why are you sitting here alone?" he asked gently. Peter forced a smile.
"Just thinking," he said.
Collins sat beside him. "You should be happy," Collins added. "Today was a good day for both of us." Peter turned slowly. "For both of us?" he repeated. Collins nodded.
"Yes."
"What is mine is yours." Those words were meant with love. Pure, honest love.
But they did not land that way.
Instead, they did something else. They planted a seed. A dangerous one. Peter looked away. The words echoed in his mind. What is mine is yours. At first, they sounded comforting. Then, they began to sound like something else. Like permission. He did not respond. He simply nodded. But inside his mind, something had shifted. Something subtle. Something quiet. Something irreversible. That night, long after Collins had gone to sleep, Peter remained awake, staring into the darkness, thinking, turning those words over and over in his mind. What is mine is yours.
He repeated them again.
This time slower, this time deeper. And then a new thought followed.
Clear, sharp,
Dangerous. If what is his is mine, then why does it not feel like it? That was the moment. The first real crack. Not in their friendship, but in Peter's heart. Because from that moment on, he no longer saw Collins' success as something to celebrate. He began to see it as something to question, something to compare, something to desire. And once a man begins to desire what belongs to another, it is only a matter of time before desire becomes decision. Some thoughts are like passing clouds. They come and they go, but others, they stay. They return again and again until they begin to feel like truth. From that night under the baobab tree, Peter could not find peace. At first, he tried to ignore it. He woke the next morning and went about his day like nothing had changed. He greeted people. He laughed. He spoke with the same charm everyone knew. But inside, his mind was not quiet anymore. What is mine is yours. The words followed him. He heard them while walking, he heard them while eating, he heard them even when no one was speaking. At first, they sounded like kindness,
but slowly they began to change.
What is mine is yours. If that was true, then why did Collins live comfortably while he struggled? Why did Collins have more when they started from the same place? Why did life seem to favor one and not the other? The questions came quickly now, and each one made the feeling inside him stronger. Not anger, not yet, but something close, something heavier. That afternoon, Peter found himself walking toward Collins' house. He had been there many times before. It was not a strange place, but today it felt different. Collins welcomed him, as usual. You came at the right time, he said with a smile. I just finished cooking. Peter sat. They ate together. They talked. Everything looked normal. Everything sounded normal. But inside Peter, nothing was normal. His eyes moved differently. He noticed things he had never noticed before. The way the grain was stacked neatly in the corner. The way the clay pots were arranged carefully. The way the tools were placed with order. Everything had value. Everything had effort behind it. Everything told a story of work, consistency, patience. And for the first time, Peter did not see it as something to admire. He saw it as something to measure. How much is all this worth? He asked suddenly. Collins looked surprised. I don't know, he said honestly. I have never counted it that way. Peter nodded slowly, but inside, he was already counting. That evening, when he left the house, he walked more slowly than usual. His thoughts were louder now, stronger, clearer. You have nothing. The voice was no longer a whisper. It spoke directly. You have nothing, and he has everything. Peter stopped walking. He looked back at Collins' house. The sun was setting behind it. The light made it look warm, peaceful, secure. That could be yours, the voice continued. Peter shook his head quickly. No, he whispered. That is wrong. For a moment, silence returned. His conscience had spoken. But then, the other voice came back, stronger, more convincing. He said it himself. What is mine is yours. Peter's breathing slowed. His resistance weakened. It is not stealing, the voice continued. It is taking what you were already given. That thought changed everything. Because once a man begins to justify what is wrong, he no longer sees it as wrong. That night, Peter could not sleep. He turned from side to side, closed his eyes, opened them again. The darkness felt alive with thoughts. He imagined opening the storage room. He imagined touching the grain. He imagined counting the money. He imagined a different life, an easier life, a better life. His heart began to beat faster. Not from fear, but from possibility. "This is your chance," the voice said. And this time, Peter did not argue, because the thought that once felt wrong now felt reasonable. And the moment something wrong begins to feel reasonable, that is when a man is closest to making his biggest mistake. Sometimes, the biggest mistakes in life do not begin with bad intentions. They begin with trust. The evening was calm. The sky was painted in soft orange and fading gold. A gentle breeze moved through the village, carrying the smell of cooking fires and fresh earth. Colin sat outside his house, looking thoughtful. Peter was beside him. Everything looked normal, but something important was about to happen. "Peter," Colin said quietly, "I need to travel." Peter turned to him. "Travel? Where?" "There is a larger market in the next town," Collins explained. "I want to sell some of my harvest there. It may take time." Peter nodded slowly. "How long?" "I don't know," Collins replied. "Maybe weeks." There was a brief silence. Then Collins placed his hand on Peter's shoulder. "There is no one I trust more than you." Those words landed deeply, not just on Peter's ears, but on his thoughts. "I need you to take care of my home while I am gone," Collins continued. "Everything I have, I leave in your care." Everything. For a moment, time slowed. This was not just a request. It was an opportunity. Peter felt his chest tighten. The voice returned, louder than ever. "This is your chance." But Collins was still speaking. "I trust you like I trust myself." That sentence should have stopped everything. Should have silenced every wrong thought. Should have reminded Peter of who he was. But instead, it did something else. It removed the last barrier. Peter smiled. A perfect smile. "Of course," he said. "You don't even need to ask." Collins nodded, relieved. "Thank you, my brother." Brother. But as Collins stood up and walked inside, Peter's smile slowly faded. Because in that moment, the decision had already been made. And sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can give someone is full access without knowing what is in their heart. Morning came quietly, but for Peter, it felt loud. Collins prepared to leave. He packed carefully. He checked everything. He moved through his house with the calm of a man who had nothing to fear, because he believed everything was safe. Before leaving, he turned to Peter one last time. "If anything happens," he said, "you know what to do." Then he did something simple, something small, but powerful. He placed the keys into Peter's hand. The weight of them was more than metal. It was trust, complete trust. Peter looked at them, then looked at Collins. For a brief moment, something inside him hesitated. A flicker of doubt, a memory, a warning, but it passed. Quickly. "I will take care of everything," Peter said. Collins smiled. Then he left. Peter stood there, watching him walk away, step by step, until he disappeared. And when he was gone, the silence changed. The house was still. The village moved as usual. But inside Peter, something shifted completely. He turned slowly and looked at the house, not as a friend anymore, but as something else, something available. The first step is always the hardest, but once it is taken, the rest becomes easier. That night, Peter did not sleep. He lay on his mat, staring into the darkness, listening to his own thoughts. The house felt different, not warm, not familiar. It felt tempting. He sat up slowly. His eyes moved toward the corner. The clay pot, the one he had seen many times before. He stood, walked toward it, stopped. "This is wrong," he whispered. Silence answered him. Then the voice returned. "You are not stealing. You are only checking." That sounded harmless, safe, reasonable. Peter lifted the cloth, looked inside. Coins. More than he had held in a long time. His fingers moved. Slowly. He picked a few. They made a soft sound. He froze. Nothing happened. No one came. No voice stopped him. And that was the danger. Because when wrong actions go unpunished at first, they begin to feel safe. He put the coins back, covered the pot, sat down again. But something had changed. He had crossed the line. Not fully, but enough. And once a man crosses the line in his heart, it is only a matter of time before his actions follow. The next day, Peter returned to the pot. This time, he did not hesitate. He took a few coins, just a few. It is nothing, he told himself. He will not notice. And that was how it began. He spent the coins,
Bought food.
a better meal than usual, something he had always wanted, and it felt good. Too good. That was the danger, because easy gain feels like reward, not like theft. Days passed. Peter became more comfortable, more confident. He took more. A little grain, a little money, a small item. Each time, he told himself the same thing. It is small. It does not matter. He has enough. And slowly, the guilt became quieter. The taking became easier. The house no longer felt like something to protect. It felt like something to use. And that is how a man changes. Not all at once, but little by little, until one day, he no longer recognizes himself. During the day, Peter played his role perfectly. He swept the compound. He greeted neighbors. He smiled. He spoke kindly to everyone else. He was a loyal friend. A good man, they said. A trustworthy man. They praised him. They admired him. And each word made the lies stronger. But at night, the truth returned. He counted the coins. He checked the goods. He planned. The house was changing.
Slowly.
Things were disappearing. But no one noticed.
Not yet.
And that gave him confidence. Dangerous confidence. One evening, an old woman watched him carefully. Mama saw it. "You walk too freely in another man's home," she said. Peter smiled. "I am taking care of it." She shook her head. "Be careful. Trust is easy to break and impossible to repair fully." For a moment, Peter felt something, but he pushed it away because the plan was already forming. And once a man begins to plan wrongdoing, he stops listening to warnings. The night was dark. The wind was strong. The village was quiet. It was the perfect night. Peter moved carefully,
Quickly.
This was no longer small, no longer hesitation. This was decision. He gathered everything. The money,
The grain.
the goods, the tools, everything. His heart raced. His hands shook, but he did not stop. Each item he took felt like crossing another line, but he had already crossed too many. There was no going back now. At one point he paused, looked around. The house felt empty already. Memories rushed in. Laughter, friendship, trust. For a moment, he almost stopped. Almost. But then, the voice returned. "You have come too far." And that was enough. Before dawn, everything was gone. The house stood silent, stripped, empty. Peter stood at the doorway, looking back. For the first time, he understood what he had done. But instead of fixing it, he turned away and left. Because sometimes, the worst part of betrayal is not the act itself. It is the decision to walk away from it, as if it never mattered. Some journeys feel longer on the way back, not because of distance, but because of expectation. Collins walked toward Albany with quiet excitement. The road was familiar. The air felt like home. Every step brought a small sense of peace. "I will finally rest," he said to himself. "My home is safe." That thought stayed with him. It gave him comfort,
Strength.
confidence, because in his mind, there was no reason to worry. As he entered the village, people greeted him. "Collins, you are back. How was the journey? Did the market go well?" He smiled, answered politely, but he did not stop. Home was calling him. He turned into the path leading to his house, and that was when something changed. The air felt different.
Too quiet.
The gate was slightly open. The ground looked untouched. Collins slowed down. "Peter," he called. No answer. He stepped inside, and everything stopped. The house was empty. At first, Collins did not understand. He stood still, looking around, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The shelves were empty. The pots were gone. The tools were missing. It did not look like a home. It looked like something that had been taken apart. "No," he whispered. He rushed into the storage room. Nothing. No grain. No goods. No savings. Everything
Gone.
His breath became heavy. This cannot be real. He stepped outside quickly. "Peter," he shouted. Silence. He called again. Louder. Still nothing. The village continued its normal rhythm. But for Collins, everything had changed. And in that moment, the silence spoke louder than any answer. Because deep inside, he already knew. Hope is a strange thing. Even when the truth is clear, the heart still searches for another explanation. Collins walked through the village, asking, searching,
Hoping.
"Have you seen Peter?"
People looked at him, confused.
Concerned. "I have not seen him in days," one said. "He was here before," another added.
But now,
They shook their heads. Each answer felt heavier. Collins's step slowed. The hope he carried began to break. Then an old man spoke quietly. "Sometimes, the person you trust the most is the one who knows how to hurt you the deepest." Collins stopped. Those words were not new.
but now,
They meant something different, something real, something painful. And for the first time, he allowed himself to think it. Peter did this. The thought landed heavily, and once it settled, it did not move. That night, Collins sat alone. The house felt empty, not just of things, but of meaning. He looked around, remembering where everything used to be.
the grain.
The money, the tools, years of work.
Gone.
But that was not the hardest part. The hardest part was the betrayal. "I trusted him," Collins whispered. Not once, not twice, but completely. He replayed everything. The conversations, the laughter, the promises. How did I not see it? The question had no answer. Because betrayal is not always visible. It hides. It waits. And when it comes from close. Collins closed his eyes. Pain filled his chest. Heavy, silent. But he did not cry loudly. Some pain is too deep for noise. It sits quietly and changes you from within. Morning came, and with it, reality. The house was still empty. Nothing had changed, and nothing would change unless he did something. Collins stood outside, looking at his land. The fields were still there, the soil still rich, the sun still rising. Life had not ended. It had only changed. He took a deep breath. "I have lost everything," he said. Then he paused. "No, not everything." He looked at his hands. "I still have myself." That was enough. Not easy, not fast, but enough. He stepped forward, because sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is begin again. At first, it felt like freedom. Peter walked away from Albany with everything he had taken. The road was open. The future felt wide. "No one will know," he told himself. "No one will find me." For the first time in his life, he felt ahead. He had money. He had goods. He had control. Or so he believed.
He ate well.
Better than before. He bought things he had once only looked at. He walked with confidence. And for a moment, it felt like he had won. But some victories are only illusions. Because what is taken wrongly never stays peacefully. Days passed, then weeks. And slowly, things began to change. The money started to reduce. At first, it did not worry him.
There's still more, he said.
But expenses grew.
Food.
Shelter. Movement. Each day took something. Until one day, he noticed. The money was no longer plenty. It was limited. Then came another problem. He was alone. No familiar faces. No one who knew him. No one who cared about him. In Albany, he had belonged. Here, he was just another stranger. And slowly, the comfort he chased began to fade. At night, he could not sleep, not because of noise, but because of silence. In that silence, memories returned. Collins's voice, Collins's trust, Collins's words. "I trust you like I trust myself." Peter turned on his side. closed his eyes, but the words did not stop. He sat up, breathing heavily. "Stop," he whispered, "but the truth does not stop. It waits, and when you are alone, it speaks." For the first time, Peter asked himself a question. Was it worth it? He did not answer, because deep inside, he already knew. Regret is heavy, but it does something important. It points you back. Peter stood one morning, looking at the road. There was nowhere else to go. The money was nearly gone. The comfort was gone. The confidence was gone. And what remained was truth. He had lost everything, not because life was unfair, but because of his own choice. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath. "I have to go back." The words felt heavy, because going back meant facing everything.
The shame.
The judgment, the truth. But running had already failed him, so he began walking, step by step, back to the place he had broken. The village looked the same, but everything felt different. As Peter entered Avenue, people noticed. Whispers began. "He is back. The one who ran. The one who betrayed." Every step felt heavier. He did not look at anyone. He walked straight, toward one place, Collins's house. The same house he had emptied. The same place he had left behind. He stopped at the entrance. His heart beat fast. For a moment, he almost turned away, but he didn't. He stepped inside. Collins was there. Their eyes met. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Peter walked forward slowly. Then, he fell to his knees, because some truths can only be faced from the ground. Silence filled the compound. No one moved. No one spoke. Peter remained on his knees, his head lowered, his body still. "I have no excuse," he said.
His voice was weak,
but honest. "I took everything." Each word felt heavy. "I planned it, I did it, and I ran." Collins stood there, listening, not interrupting. "I thought it would change my life," Peter continued, "but it destroyed it." He paused, struggling to speak. "I lost everything, and I deserve it." Then finally, "I am sorry." The words were simple, but real, and sometimes that is all a person can offer. Collins did not speak immediately. He looked at Peter, really looked at him, not the man from the past, but the man in front of him now, broken, tired, changed. Then Collins spoke. "You remember what you said when I left?" Peter nodded slowly. "You said you would take care of my home." Silence. "I trusted you." That sentence carried more weight than anger. Peter lowered his head. "I know." Collins took a breath. "You did not just take my things," he said. "You broke something deeper." "I know," Peter repeated. There was a long pause. Then Collins said something no one expected. "I forgive you." The words were quiet, but powerful. Peter looked up, shocked. But Collins continued. "Forgiveness does not mean things will be the same." The truth landed clearly. "I will not hate you," Collins said, "but I cannot trust you again." Peter nodded slowly, because he understood. Forgiveness can be given, but trust must be rebuilt. And sometimes, it never fully returns. After that day, things did not go back to normal. They moved forward. Collins returned to his work. Slowly, patiently, he rebuilt, not with speed, but with wisdom. He no longer trusted blindly, but he did not close his heart completely, because he had learned something important. One person's betrayal should not destroy your ability to be good. Meanwhile, Peter stayed, not as before, not as a friend, but as a man starting again. From nothing, he worked hard, without complaint, without pride, without expecting praise. Day by day, he proved something, not with words, but with actions. That change is possible, even after failure. Years passed. The story did not disappear. It grew. People told it. Parents shared it. Elders repeated it. "This is what happens," they would say, "when greed replaces loyalty." Children would listen closely. "Why did he do it?" they would ask. And the elders would answer, Because envy can grow quietly until it controls a man. Others would ask, why did Collins forgive him? And the answer would come, because anger destroys the one who carries it. The story became more than a story. It became the warning, a reminder, a truth. In the end, life continued. Collins stood in his field once again. The sun was setting, the crops were growing, the land was alive, not because nothing had happened, but because he chose to rise after it. In another part of the village, Peter worked quietly, no longer proud, no longer careless,
but changed.
and though the past could not be erased, the future was no longer empty, because both men had learned something, one about trust, the other about consequence, and the village remembered, because some lessons are too important to forget. They grew up like brothers. They shared everything, but in the end, one chose trust, and the other chose betrayal. And that choice changed everything.